The Apache woman was known far and wide in her land. Her name was whispered with respect and sometimes fear, for she carried herself with a confidence that few could match. She was young but strong, her eyes sharp and aware, always scanning the horizon for anything unusual. Her skin was tanned from the sun, and her movements were quick, precise, and graceful, almost like a hawk gliding through the wind. People said she was untouchable, not because she was mean or cruel, but because she was independent and fearless. No one had ever been able to challenge her, and she liked it that way. She had grown up in a small Apache village, surrounded by mountains and rivers that shaped every part of her life. From a very young age, she learned how to survive in the wilderness. Her father had taught her how to track animals, how to find water in dry places, and how to move quietly through the forests. Her mother had shown her how to recognize plants that could heal wounds, make food, or even be used for protection. Every skill she learned gave her confidence. Every challenge she overcame made her feel stronger. By the time she became a young woman, she was already respected for her intelligence, courage, and skill. Life in the village was not easy, but it was full of lessons. She watched how people treated each other, how elders made decisions, and how warriors protected the community. She learned that strength was not just about fighting. It was about knowing when to act, when to stay calm, and when to understand the people around you. She loved her freedom, the ability to walk through the forests alone, to climb mountains, and to hunt without needing anyone's help. Many young women admired her, and some young men were both impressed and intimidated by her presence. Despite her fearlessness, she was not reckless. She respected nature and her community. She knew the dangers that surrounded her, from wild animals to the changing seasons, and she always prepared herself. Her reputation for being untouchable came not from arrogance, but from her skill and intelligence. People learned quickly that trying to control or dominate her was impossible. She moved with purpose, spoke with clarity, and acted with confidence. Those who underestimated her soon realized their mistake. Her days were full of activity. Early in the morning, she would rise with the sun, stretching her body and preparing for the tasks ahead. She would hunt for food, gather herbs, or check traps she had set the night before. Sometimes she would visit the elders, listening to their stories, learning the wisdom of the past, and observing the world through their eyes. In the afternoons, she might practice archery or ride her horse across the plains. She loved the feeling of the wind on her face, the rhythm of the horse beneath her, and the quiet moments where she felt connected to the land. Her nights were calm, often spent near a fire with her family or alone under the stars. She enjoyed the stillness, the way the world seemed to pause, and the soft sounds of the night, the crackle of the fire, the distant calls of animals, and the whisper of the wind through the trees became familiar companions. She would sometimes think about the future, imagining the places she might go, the people she might meet, and the challenges she might face. Yet she always returned to the present, focused on the life she had now, confident in her abilities, and proud of who she was. Her independence also meant she had few close friends outside her family. She trusted people slowly, and only those who proved themselves reliable earned her respect. Many admired her beauty, her courage, and her sharp mind, but admiration alone was not enough to gain her trust. She had seen the world through the eyes of her tribe, and knew that not everyone could be relied upon. This understanding made her cautious, but it also made her strong. She could handle challenges alone, and she had proven it many times. The nearby lands, however, were changing. Settlers and cowboys were moving closer to Apache territory, bringing new challenges, new ways of life, and sometimes danger. The Apache woman watched these changes carefully. She was curious but cautious. She understood that outsiders could be unpredictable, and she wanted to be ready for anything. Her community had always survived because of careful planning, knowledge of the land, and courage. She intended to continue that tradition, protecting herself and her people while learning what she could from the world beyond. Her confidence was not arrogance. It was earned through experience. She had faced storms, wild animals, and rival tribes. She had outsmarted dangers that could have ended her life, and she had survived every challenge. Each experience added to her strength, making her feel untouchable. She believed that her skills, her intelligence, and her courage made her nearly invincible. But there was a quiet curiosity in her heart. A part of her wondered if anyone could ever match her in skill or wisdom. Deep down, she wanted to know what it meant to meet someone who could challenge her. This curiosity was not something she often admitted, even to herself. She had always been the one others looked up to or feared. She had never been tested in a way that shook her confidence. Life had taught her to rely on herself, and she trusted her instincts completely. The thought of someone coming into her life who could teach her a lesson she did not already know was intriguing, but also a little unsettling. She enjoyed her freedom and the idea of being untouchable. Despite this, she remained observant. She watched the movements of people near the village, listened to stories of travelers and traders, and learned what she could about outsiders. Her skills allowed her to understand the world quickly, and she adapted easily. She had an open mind, but she never let curiosity override caution. Her reputation as untouchable was not just about strength. It was about awareness, preparation, and the ability to read the world around her. In her heart, the Apache woman believed that strength was more than physical. It was intelligence, courage, and the ability to act wisely under pressure. She had proven herself countless times. She had faced challenges that others could not imagine and emerged stronger every time. Her independence was her armor, and her knowledge was her weapon. The combination made her feel untouchable, not in arrogance, but in certainty. She knew who she was and what she could do, but the world was changing. New faces, new challenges, and new ways of life were approaching her lands. While she remained confident, there was a sense of anticipation, a quiet feeling that life might soon test her in ways she had never experienced. She did not know what form this test would take, but her instincts told her to be ready. The Apache woman, proud and skilled, stood on the edge of her territory, watching the horizon, aware that life could bring surprises, and confident in her ability to face them, yet unknowingly. The biggest surprise of her life was about to arrive. Life in the Apache woman's territory continued much as it had for years, but the winds of change were beginning to stir. One morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, she noticed something unusual. A figure appeared on the distant horizon, moving steadily across the plains. At first, she thought it might be a traveler, or perhaps someone lost. But as she observed more closely, she realized this person was different from the usual strangers who occasionally passed by. He moved with confidence, his posture relaxed yet alert. His horse was well-fed and trained, carrying him swiftly across the rough terrain without hesitation. The Apache woman felt a strange curiosity. She had seen travelers and traders before, but something about this man caught her attention. Unlike the clumsy settlers who sometimes wandered into her land, this man seemed capable, experienced, and observant. She decided to watch him from a distance, hiding behind the trees and hills, letting her instincts guide her. Her eyes followed every movement, her mind analyzing the way he rode, how he handled his horse, and how he looked at the land. The man, a cowboy from a nearby settlement, had his own purpose for entering the territory. He was not there to cause trouble or to hunt for himself. He had heard stories of the Apache lands, of their beauty, and of their dangers. His curiosity and sense of adventure brought him forward. But he also knew that respect and caution were necessary. The stories told of fierce Apache warriors and clever women who could survive where others could not. He knew he must tread carefully, or he could face consequences he was not prepared for. Their first encounter was almost accidental. The Apache woman had been tracking deer near a small stream when she noticed the cowboy nearby, setting up a small camp. She remained hidden, observing silently as he worked. There was something different about him. He did not move carelessly, nor did he show fear of the surroundings. Instead, he seemed aware, respectful of the land, and skilled at living in it. She felt a mixture of curiosity and caution. For the first time, in a long while, she wondered if someone could match her in skill and intelligence. Over the next few days, their paths continued to cross. The Apache woman observed him from the shadows, testing his reactions, noticing how he adapted to challenges in the wilderness. One morning, she saw him carefully navigate a rocky slope, helping his horse over rough terrain. Another day, she noticed him using a clever trick to catch fish in a shallow stream without frightening them. Each time, she felt a small ripple of surprise. He was not like the other outsiders she had seen. He had patience, cleverness, and a respect for the land that impressed her. Curiosity began to grow into something more. The Apache woman started thinking about him when she was alone, wondering who he was, where he came from, and what he might want. She was proud, independent, and untouchable, yet she could not deny that his presence intrigued her. For the first time, she felt the stirrings of a challenge, someone who might see through her confidence and test her in ways she had not yet experienced. She reminded herself to remain cautious. Pride and independence were her strength. But she could not ignore the possibility that this cowboy might be different from anyone she had met before. One afternoon, the encounter became direct. The Apache woman stepped out of the trees, revealing herself on a ridge above the cowboy's camp. She did not intend to frighten him, but she wanted him to know that she was aware of his presence. The cowboy looked up, meeting her gaze without fear. Instead of showing surprise, he nodded slightly, acknowledging her without intrusion or disrespect. There was a silent understanding in that moment. Each recognized the other as capable and intelligent, and neither sought unnecessary conflict. They began to interact slowly, carefully, as equals testing each other's boundaries. She challenged him with questions, observing how he responded to her knowledge of the land and his understanding of survival skills. He answered with honesty and calmness, showing respect for her experience while demonstrating his own competence. The Apache woman, who had always felt untouchable, began to sense that he was not easily intimidated. Each encounter became a game of observation and skill, a silent competition to see who could read the other more clearly. Despite her growing curiosity, she maintained her pride. She did not allow herself to be impressed easily. She had faced challenges from nature, rival tribes, and even unpredictable travelers, yet she had always remained strong. But this cowboy was different. He respected her space, but he also persisted in ways that were subtle and clever. He did not challenge her with aggression. He challenged her with intelligence, patience, and skill. She found herself thinking about his actions long after he had left her sight, trying to understand the strategy behind them. The days passed, and their interactions grew more complex. The Apache woman tested him in small ways, setting up situations to see how he would respond. Would he panic in a sudden storm? Could he track an animal without disturbing it? Could he navigate difficult terrain with patience and caution? Each time, he succeeded, often in ways that surprised her. She began to see that his presence was not a threat in the usual sense, but a challenge to her perception of herself as untouchable. At the same time, she could not deny the small moments of connection that developed between them. Sometimes, when he left food near the stream for a deer or a small animal, she noticed the kindness in his actions. He did not boast about it or seek recognition. It was quiet, thoughtful behavior that showed a deeper understanding of the world around him. These moments softened her perception of him. Even as she remained cautious and proud, she realized that strength did not only come from skill and independence, but also from wisdom, compassion, and patience. Their encounters were never forced. They were organic, arising from curiosity, mutual respect, and shared space in the wild lands. Sometimes they worked silently side by side, tracking animals or observing the environment. Sometimes they spoke, sharing stories of their lives, their experiences, and their knowledge. She learned about his past, his life as a cowboy, and his understanding of the frontier. He learned about her tribe, her upbringing, and the lessons that shaped her strength. Each conversation deepened their understanding, and each shared moment made the Apache woman realize that she was meeting a person unlike anyone she had ever encountered. There were moments of tension, of course. Cultural differences occasionally caused misunderstandings. At first, she was wary of his intentions, unsure whether he was truly respectful or simply clever in his approach. She tested him with sharp questions and challenges, observing his reactions closely. Each time, he responded with patience and honesty, showing that he was genuine in his respect and interest. Gradually, the Apache woman began to lower her guard, though only slightly. She was proud and independent, and she would not be easily swayed. But she also began to recognize that this cowboy was exceptional in a way that demanded attention. One day, a minor challenge brought their interactions to a new level. While exploring a ridge, they both came across a difficult path, blocked by rocks and fallen branches. The Apache woman immediately assessed the situation, thinking she could navigate it better than anyone. The cowboy did not argue or rush. Instead, he studied the path carefully, noting the safest angles, the strongest footholds, and the most efficient route. When they moved together, she realized that his method was just as intelligent as her own, if not more precise in some ways. It was a subtle revelation, but it shook her confidence slightly. She had never met someone who could match her thinking so closely in a practical test of skill. That evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of gold and orange, they sat near a fire. The Apache woman reflected on the day, acknowledging quietly to herself that she was not as untouchable as she had believed. The cowboy, sensing her thoughts, did not speak of it directly. Instead, he respected her pride, allowing her to come to her own conclusions. She realized that strength was not about defeating others, but about understanding, adapting, and recognizing skill when it appeared. Over time, their interactions developed into a quiet companionship built on mutual respect. The Apache woman remained proud and independent, but she could no longer ignore the lessons he brought into her life. He showed her that there were different forms of strength, different ways to approach challenges, and that respect and intelligence could be just as powerful as courage and skill. She began to see that being untouchable did not mean never being challenged. It meant being able to adapt, learn, and recognize value in others. The cowboy's presence in her life became a constant, subtle force that reshaped her understanding of herself and her world. She remained alert, cautious, and independent, but she also began to accept that her untouchable image was incomplete. There was a deeper truth she had not faced. Even the strongest, most skilled, and most confident person could learn from others, could encounter challenges that revealed new layers of understanding, and could grow in ways previously unimagined. By the end of Part 2, the Apache woman had begun to realize that her confidence and independence, while formidable, were only part of the story. The cowboy was not a threat in the traditional sense. He was a mirror, reflecting her strengths back at her, but also showing areas she had never explored. For the first time, she faced the reality that being untouchable was not about never encountering challenge. It was about facing challenge, recognizing value in others, and embracing the lessons that life brought. As the days passed, the Apache woman continued to observe the cowboy with careful attention. She had always been confident in her abilities, believing herself untouchable. Yet she could not ignore the subtle ways he challenged her understanding of the world. His calmness, intelligence, and skill were not threatening in the usual sense, but they tested her in ways she had never expected. Each encounter made her think more deeply about herself, her life, and the way she approached challenges. One morning, she decided to test him in a more deliberate way. She had noticed that a small stream, usually calm and easy to cross, had grown swollen and fast-flowing from recent rains. It was dangerous for an unprepared person to cross. She set up a careful observation point on a ridge, hidden among the trees, and watched as the cowboy approached the water. To her surprise, he did not panic or avoid the stream. Instead, he studied it, looking for rocks or fallen branches that could help him cross safely. With quiet confidence, he moved carefully, testing each step before committing. When he finally reached the other side, she felt a flicker of admiration she did not expect. He had not just survived. He had done so with thought, patience, and skill. This small incident was only the beginning. Over the following days, she found herself observing him more closely than ever. Sometimes, she would watch him hunt, tracking game with patience and precision. Other times, she would see him helping an injured animal or repairing his horse's tack with care and attention. Each action revealed a level of intelligence and thoughtfulness that she had not encountered before. She began to realize that strength was not only measured by physical skill or courage, but by patience, wisdom, and understanding of the world around you. The Apache woman's pride made her cautious about admitting these realizations, even to herself. She had always believed she was untouchable, that her skill and independence set her apart. Yet, the cowboy's presence gradually eroded this certainty. He did not boast or challenge her directly, but he demonstrated a way of living and thinking that was new to her. She began to see that there were other forms of strength, forms that required observation, patience, and understanding rather than just speed, force, or courage. One afternoon, a situation arose that truly tested both of them. While exploring a ridge together, they encountered a group of wild horses that had become agitated and dangerous. The animals were frightened, their movements unpredictable. The Apache woman knew she could handle them alone, but she also recognized the danger. The cowboy did not panic. He assessed the situation calmly, looking for the safest approach. Together, they worked to guide the horses away from the cliff edge, using patience, coordination, and careful movements. The task required trust and cooperation. And the Apache woman realized for the first time that relying on someone else did not mean losing strength, it could enhance it. That evening, after the incident, they sat near a fire, catching their breath and reflecting on the day. The Apache woman found herself thinking deeply about the lesson she had learned. She had always faced challenges alone, relying on her own skill and intelligence. But in that moment, she saw the value of cooperation, of learning from someone else, and of acknowledging that even the strongest person could benefit from support. Her pride was not diminished. Rather, it evolved into something richer and more nuanced. The cowboy never forced these lessons upon her. He respected her independence, allowing her to come to her own conclusions. This approach intrigued her. She realized that true strength was not about dominating others or proving oneself untouchable. It was about understanding, adapting, and recognizing wisdom and skill wherever it appeared. Slowly, she began to accept that her belief in being untouchable was incomplete. There were challenges she had never faced, and lessons she had yet to learn. As their relationship developed, she noticed small, quiet moments that further changed her perspective. She observed him treating the land with care, leaving no unnecessary damage, and respecting the balance of nature. He demonstrated kindness to animals, patience with difficult situations, and an ability to remain calm under pressure. These qualities were different from what she had always valued in herself or expected from others, but she found them compelling. They showed her that true strength included thoughtfulness, compassion, and awareness. Not just independence or courage, the Apache woman also began to recognize her own vulnerabilities. She had always prided herself on being able to handle any challenge alone, but the events of the past weeks showed her that there were limits she had not acknowledged. Facing the wild horses, observing the cowboy's skill, and reflecting on their conversations made her see that even the most capable person could encounter situations beyond their previous experience. Accepting this did not make her weak. It made her stronger, wiser, and more aware of herself and the world. One morning, a minor accident further emphasized this lesson. While climbing a steep slope, she slipped on loose rocks and nearly fell. Instinctively, she reached for support, and the cowboy was there, steadying her and helping her regain her footing. She felt a mix of surprise and humility. For the first time, she acknowledged that she could rely on someone else without losing her independence or strength. The experience stayed with her, reminding her that being untouchable did not mean facing life alone. It meant facing life with awareness, courage, and an openness to learning. Over time, the Apache woman's perception of the cowboy changed. What had started as curiosity and caution grew into respect, admiration, and even quiet friendship. She realized that he was not just a challenge to her independence, but also a teacher in subtle ways. Through his actions, patience, and intelligence, he revealed lessons she had not known she needed. Her pride remained, but it was tempered with humility and a growing understanding that strength was multifaceted. The Apache woman also noticed changes in herself. She became more reflective, more patient, and more open to new experiences. She still loved the freedom of the wilderness, the thrill of hunting, and the pride of independence. But she now understood that true strength also included observation, learning, and recognition of the value in others. The cowboy's presence had expanded her understanding of what it meant to be capable, confident, and untouchable in a deeper, more meaningful way. As the weeks turned into months, their connection deepened. They spent time together exploring the land, learning from each other, and facing small challenges that tested their skill and patience. The Apache woman found herself thinking about the lessons she had learned in quiet moments, reflecting on her growth and the subtle ways her perception of strength had changed. She understood that being untouchable was not about never facing challenges, it was about embracing challenges, learning from them, and recognizing the strength in others. One evening, as the sun set over the plains, the Apache woman sat quietly, thinking about how much her life had changed in such a short time. She realized that the cowboy had shown her a reality she had not expected. That independence and skill were important, but they were only part of the picture. True strength included understanding, humility, cooperation, and the ability to recognize and learn from others. She felt a quiet gratitude for the lessons he had brought into her life, even as she remained proud and strong. The Apache woman's transformation was subtle but profound. She still moved with confidence, skill, and awareness, but there was a new depth to her understanding. She could see the value in the cowboy's presence, the wisdom in his patience, and the strength in his calmness. She had faced challenges that tested not only her skill but her perception of herself. And she had emerged wiser, stronger, and more aware. By the end of Part 3, the Apache woman no longer felt completely untouchable in the way she once had. Her independence and skill were still formidable, but she had learned that true strength was more complex than she had believed. She had faced challenges that revealed new aspects of herself and had recognized the value of patience, wisdom, and cooperation. The cowboy had not defeated her. He had shown her a reality she had never considered. A reality where strength included understanding, humility, and openness to learning. For the first time, she embraced the idea that being untouchable was not about being invincible. It was about facing life with courage, intelligence, and awareness, and being willing to grow through experience. The Apache woman, proud and capable, had begun a journey of self-discovery that would shape her understanding of herself and the world around her in ways she could never have imagined. The Apache woman had spent many days and nights reflecting on the lessons she had learned. Her pride and independence had always defined her. But now she felt a quiet shift inside her. She had come to realize that being untouchable did not mean being invincible or alone. It meant understanding herself, recognizing the value of others, and embracing the lessons that life brought her. The cowboy's presence had been a gentle, yet powerful teacher, showing her truths she had never considered. One morning, she woke early, as was her custom, and walked through the forest near her village. The air was cool, and the mist from the river clung to the trees. She felt a sense of calm, a quiet confidence that was different from the sharp, fearless pride she had carried for so long. She knew that strength came not only from skill but also from wisdom, humility, and connection. Each step she took felt purposeful, aware, and measured, as though the land itself had accepted her growth. The cowboy had become a familiar presence in her life. He no longer appeared as a distant curiosity or a subtle challenge. He was a companion, someone she could respect and learn from, without losing her own independence. Together, they had faced dangers, solved problems, and shared knowledge about the land. He had shown her patience, intelligence, and skill that complemented her own. Over time, she realized that her reputation as untouchable had been only part of her story. True strength included openness, trust, and understanding. A significant event came one afternoon that would solidify her transformation. A fire had started in a nearby part of the forest, likely from a lightning strike during a storm. The flames spread quickly, threatening the trees, animals, and even her village. The Apache woman knew that this was a situation she could not handle alone. Without hesitation, she sought the cowboys' help. Together, they assessed the fire, determined the safest paths, and worked to guide the villagers and animals away from danger. The experience demanded courage, intelligence, and cooperation. It was the first time she fully relied on another person to face a real threat. During the chaos, she observed how he moved calmly, giving clear instructions and thinking several steps ahead. His ability to stay composed under pressure amazed her. She realized that relying on him did not diminish her own strength. It enhanced it. She could combine her skill with his wisdom, creating a partnership that was far more powerful than either could achieve alone. For the first time, she felt that being untouchable was not about standing alone. It was about facing challenges together, with awareness, courage, and trust. After the fire was controlled and the villagers were safe, she walked quietly with the cowboy, the smoke drifting behind them as the sun set. The air smelled of ash and earth, but there was a sense of relief and accomplishment. She looked at him, and for the first time, she acknowledged her growth out loud. "I see now," she said softly, "that being untouchable does not mean never needing help. It means facing the truth of who we are and learning from those around us." The cowboy nodded, understanding her words without judgment. He had never forced her to learn. He had only shown her the reality, allowing her to reach her own conclusions. The Apache woman began to apply this new understanding to all aspects of her life. She continued to hunt, explore, and practice her skills. But she also listened more closely to others, observed more carefully, and considered the advice and knowledge of those she respected. Her independence was no longer isolation. It was balanced with awareness, patience, and humility. She found that her confidence grew stronger, not weaker, because it was now informed by wisdom as well as skill. Small moments reinforced this transformation. She noticed the way he treated the land and the animals, leaving no unnecessary harm and showing respect to the environment. She observed how he helped others, not for praise, but because it was the right thing to do. These actions reminded her that strength was not only measured in physical skill or courage, but in character, thoughtfulness, and integrity. She began to adopt some of these practices herself, blending them with her own knowledge and experience. The Apache woman also began to understand herself in a new way. She reflected on her past experiences, recognizing that her pride and independence had served her well, but had also limited her perspective. She had never questioned what it meant to be untouchable until this cowboy arrived. Now, she could see that true power included the ability to adapt, to learn, and to embrace reality with an open heart. She felt a quiet satisfaction in this realization, a sense that she had grown into a more complete version of herself. Their companionship grew into a bond built on mutual respect and shared experience. They faced challenges together, explored new parts of the land, and shared stories of their lives. She learned about his experiences in the frontier, the hardships he had faced, and the lessons he had learned. He learned about her tribe, her upbringing, and the values that shaped her strength. This exchange of knowledge enriched both of them, deepening their connection and expanding their understanding of the world. One evening, as they sat on a hill watching the sunset, the Apache woman reflected on how far she had come. She thought about the first time she had seen him from a distance, how she had tested him, and how he had quietly, patiently taught her lessons she had never expected. She realized that the cowboy had not only challenged her, but had also helped her see the truth about herself. She no longer believed that being untouchable meant being invincible. She understood that it meant facing challenges with awareness, courage, and the willingness to grow. The final test of her transformation came during a journey to the edge of her territory. A group of travelers had become lost and frightened, their path blocked by difficult terrain. The Apache woman and the cowboy worked together to guide them safely, using all the skills and knowledge they had developed. She took the lead, demonstrating her independence and skill, while he provided support, advice, and careful observation. The success of the journey was a testament to her growth. She could rely on herself and others, combining strength, intelligence, and cooperation in a way she had never done before. By the time they returned to the village, the Apache woman had fully embraced her new understanding of strength. She still moved with confidence, hunted with skill, and respected her independence. But she now understood the deeper truths that the cowboy had shown her. She recognized that being untouchable was not about never facing challenges, it was about facing them wisely, with courage, awareness, and the willingness to learn. She felt a sense of peace and fulfillment, knowing that she had grown stronger in ways that mattered most. Her tribe noticed the changes as well. They saw her confidence combined with humility, her independence balanced with cooperation, and her strength enriched by wisdom. She had become a leader not only because of her skill but because of her understanding and ability to face challenges with insight and calmness. The lessons she had learned from the cowboy were now a part of her, shaping her actions, decisions, and perspective. In the quiet moments, she would often walk alone, reflecting on her journey. She remembered the days when she had believed herself untouchable. Relying only on her skill and courage, she smiled at the memory, knowing that those qualities were still vital, but that they were now complemented by a deeper understanding of the world and herself. She had learned that true strength included awareness, humility, patience, and the ability to recognize and learn from others. The cowboy remained a companion and friend, someone who had quietly guided her through these lessons without diminishing her independence or pride. Their bond was built on respect, shared experience, and mutual growth. She valued his presence, not as a crutch or challenge, but as a reminder of the lessons she had learned and the journey she had completed. As the sun set one final time over the mountains, the Apache woman stood on a hill, looking at the land she loved and had protected for so long. She felt a sense of accomplishment, peace, and understanding. She had faced challenges, learned lessons, and grown stronger in ways she had never imagined. She was proud of her independence, her skill, and her courage. But she was even more proud of her wisdom, her patience, and her openness to learning. For the first time, she fully understood what it meant to be untouchable. It was not about never facing challenges or never needing help. It was about facing life with courage, intelligence, and awareness. It was about recognizing the value in others, embracing lessons, and growing through experience. The Apache woman had achieved a balance that made her stronger than ever before. She had become untouchable, not in isolation, but in the fullness of her understanding, skill, and heart. And with that realization, she turned toward the cowboy, offering a smile of gratitude and respect. He nodded in return, understanding the depth of her growth. Together, they looked toward the horizon, ready to face whatever the future might bring. The Apache woman knew that she was no longer untouchable in the way she once believed, but in a far greater sense, untouchable in strength, wisdom, and understanding.